And way to start the show with a bang. Welcome to the Auto Trader pregame show. Chris Miles here with Greg Anthony. And we heard Kyrie Irving last night after the Celtics gave up 18 points in the fourth quarter to Kemba Walker and lose their lead and lose a third straight. Then we heard Brad Stevens kind of take those shots from Kyrie and back down a little bit. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I think both guys are being honest. And I think Brad is, in essence, saying, you know what? We could have made some adjustments from a coaching standpoint in terms of how we dealt with Kemba once he got going. And you know this, Chris. In this league, man, once a guy gets going, the only way to stop him is get the ball out.
I mean, that's Kyrie not stepping up and stopping
him. Yeah,
there.
well, but you're also getting back in transition. It's bad defense all the way around, but also credit the great offense. This guy is a boatload. He's a handful to deal with, and he had it going in that fourth quarter. And listen, they've imploded. They've done this a lot this season, have the Celtics. And in reality, I don't quite see them as being ready to get to the next level just yet. I think that's part of the frustrations that you're hearing being voiced by Kyrie and so many in that Celtics locker room.
And once again, we hear him, as you see Jason Tatum go down. That's part of the issue that he pointed to with the Celtics in their health. Tatum out tonight, Al Horford out tonight, Robert Williams out tonight. Celtics shorthanded last night with Aaron Baines and Gordon Hayward sitting that one out. They'll return, but they don't seem to be healthy right now either. So there's a frustration that Kyrie of, okay, we don't have the experience in these guys making mistakes on defense, then coaching, and also health. Those are a lot of concerns with only 8 games left in the year.
Well, listen, the 8 games, what you hope is to just get your mental health and try to get some momentum going into the postseason. Hard to do when you're dealing with extenuating circumstances in terms of injury. But this Celtics team right now, man, it's going to be a challenge for them to potentially even get out of that first round. I mean, it's just not a lock. We keep talking about how good this team is and how much talent they're going to figure it out. But the reality is, this team they've never been together. You know, Gordon Hayward is not the Gordon Hayward they thought they were going to get, 2 seasons ago when they signed him. And so he's kind of been, to me, the X factor. By him not being who they thought he was going to be, it's kind of put everybody else in a position of uncomfort. I don't think Jason Tatum's ready to be that guy just yet. Jaylen Brown, had a great game when you go back last time they played the Spurs, but, he's had his inconsistency. They all have. And I think anytime you come into the season with the expectation of winning a championship and you look up and you're 5th and you can get to 4th, but that's the best you can do with that roster, there's disappointment. But you know what? Kudos to Milwaukee, Toronto, and Philadelphia, because those teams all went out, they made moves, they got better off-season and during the season, and they're continuing to excel and go up. And right now, this Celtics team, they're looking like they're just putting their chin out, waiting for somebody to take them out.
And even when you say in 5th, because the Pacers, they came into today with 4 losses in a row, so that hasn't hurt the Celtics in the sense of they could still get home court advantage in the first round if they make a push throughout the later part of the season. But as we came into the show with, the Pacers looking like they're going to get a victory against the Nuggets. So now, is there a little bit more pressure on tonight's game after the things that Kyrie said, things that Brad Stevens said, and now Indiana getting a win? You don't want to fall 2 games back of having to be on the road in that first round.
Yeah, I will say this team would be comfortable having to go and win a game in Indianapolis. I still think they would win that series. Obviously not having Oladipo, but, Indy, they've got some talent. Bogdanovich has been the guy that I think gets the least amount of credit for the kind of year he's had for them this season. Sabonis, all their young players. Collison stepped up for them in a big way as well. I just think Boston, while I expect them to win that 4-5 matchup, whether they have home court or not, it's the next matchup that I don't know that they're going to be ready to take on. I don't know that they could beat one of those top 3 teams right now in that Eastern Conference. Having said that, Philly would be the one they probably want to see because they've had so much success against them over the last few seasons.
Well, we saw what kind of headache Kemba Walker was to the Boston Celtics.
That's a good nickname, headache.
Yeah, well, he absolutely migraine from what he did last night. But on the flip side of that, the team that the Celtics are facing tonight, the San Antonio Spurs, they had an issue with your reigning MVP, the bearded one, scored 61. That's the most ever against a Greg Popovich team. Was this just a situation of, again, James Harden, an incredible offensive weapon, just with a performance you can't stop? Or is there a bigger issue with the Spurs in not being able to defend a guy like this when they have to get a victory?
Well, listen, the Spurs have been very un-Spur-like this year. They only got 13 road wins. I mean, they've been a horrible road team. Remember, they had the rodeo trip. They go 1-7. And I think a lot of that is because while they've got a lot of young guys that have shown growth, you know, you think about White, you think about Forbes, those guys aren't necessarily ready to make that next step to where you can become a contender. And I think that's where they're caught right now. I think DeRozan and Aldridge, for the most part, have been really good all season long. Rudy Gay's been in and out a little bit. He's going to be vital to them. But, you know, right now, they're safe in that 8 spot. They still can get all the way up to 5, I guess. But it's going to be a challenge for them once the postseason starts, because I just don't know that they have enough firepower to be able to deal with some of the likes at the top of that Western Conference.
When you say firepower, when we think of the Rockets taking off after their struggle to start the year, they can clinch a playoff berth tonight with a victory and a Sacramento Kings loss. So, you know, kudos to them. But out west, look, 4 games separate the Rockets and the 8th-seeded Spurs. The Clippers and Nuggets have the longest winning streaks and are moving right up. L.A. 5th in the West, 9-1 in their last 10 games. The Nuggets before tonight had won 6 in a row. Of those teams, who's been the most impressive?
Whew. I mean, I got to go with the Clippers even more than Portland. I think the Clippers have been the most impressive team. I mean, you trade away Tobias Harris mid-season. Danilo Gallinari basically stayed healthy all season long for them. Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell, I think they're the highest scoring duo off the bench in league history. Think about that. Those two guys are having that kind of an impact off that bench. And I don't think that we've given Doc Rivers enough credit for the job he's done in terms of Coach of the Year. You know, obviously Budenholzer, what he's done in Milwaukee, Nate McMillan with what he's done, and there are other guys that have had tremendous seasons.
No,
but
absolutely.
Nobody's done a better job than Doc Rivers with that Clippers team. And to have them with a chance to have – they got a chance to have home court in the first round when a lot of people didn't know, especially after that trade, whether or not they'd still hold on and make the postseason.
Well, a week ago when we had the who should be Coach of the Year conversation, it seemed as if there were 2 candidates that were just a little bit above the rest of the competition, right? Yeah. When you look at what Mike Budenholzer has done in Milwaukee, and then when you look at the Denver Nuggets, what Mike Malone has done there. But now, if the Clippers finish the regular season with a top 4 seed in the West, it's going to be hard not to give that to Doc Rivers.
He's going to get some strong consideration. I do think that Denver and Milwaukee, and for different reasons, you know, I don't think anybody saw either of those teams being one. And I would have to say Denver's still the biggest surprise to be the one. I mean, they're a half game up right now. Over 70 games have been played. That's an amazing accomplishment for that team with all the injuries they've dealt with this season. So, but those 2 guys are, I think, head and shoulders above. But Nate's done a great job with what he's done at Indy. You know what? Nurse has done a really good job of facilitating.
In his first year in Toronto.
That roster, also having all those games that Kawhi has missed, you know, they haven't really skipped a beat. Kenny Atkinson, what he's done in Brooklyn. There have been a lot of guys. Even Dwayne Casey hadn't gotten a lot of talk. You know, that team looked like they weren't going anywhere fast midway through the season. Now all of a sudden they're locked to be in the postseason potentially if they can finish strong. So it's been a lot of good jobs done coaching-wise, but I think those 2 at the top of the conference are the odds-on favorites.
So basically half the league, the coaches deserve a pat on the back. Whoever gets the award is deserving of it.
I don't think Brad Stevens would get it this year. I don't think his players would vote for him based on the comments we heard last night. That didn't come across well.
I feel like there was a shot fired there. How many shots will be fired between the Spurs and the Celtics? That game tips off at 7:30. LaMarcus Aldridge, when he